Loneliness breaks most people, but solitude builds the rare few who dare to embrace it. Think about it. When the world goes quiet, when the noise of friends, distractions, and shallow validation disappears, that's when you truly meet yourself. Most people run from being alone because they are terrified of their own thoughts. They fill their hours with meaningless chatter, endless scrolling, and constant company, not realizing that their greatest weapon, focus, is slipping away. Solitude is not weakness. It is strength in its purest form. In those silent hours, you sharpen your mind, you hear your inner voice clearly, and you rise above the noise of mediocrity. Alone time is where dreams are designed, where plans are built, and where discipline is forged. If you can't stand being alone, you will never stand tall in this world. Champions are not born in the spotlight. They are created in the shadows, in moments where no one is watching, where choices are made to either waste time or invest it. So embrace solitude, because it will not just change you. It will transform you into the person you were destined to become. Solitude builds inner strength, and that is one of the most misunderstood truths in life. Society has convinced people that being alone is a weakness, that it means you are unwanted, unworthy, or forgotten. But the reality is far more powerful. Solitude is not about isolation, it is about mastery. It is in those quiet hours, away from the chaos of the world, that you discover what you are truly made of. Strength is not developed when everything is easy and loud. It is born when you strip away distractions and face the silence head on. Most people fear silence because silence exposes truth. When you are alone, there is no mask, no audience, no applause, no validation. It is just you and the raw version of yourself. And that can be terrifying. But that is exactly why solitude is powerful, because when you learn to stand strong in those moments, you develop an inner fortress that no opinion, no rejection, and no storm can ever break. Alone time is a mirror, and that mirror doesn't lie. It reflects back every weakness, every fear, every insecurity you try to bury under noise. At first, solitude feels heavy because it confronts you with the very things you've been running from. But once you stop running and face those truths, you unlock the beginning of transformation. You start to realize that you don't need external validation to feel worthy. You don't need a crowd to feel alive. And you don't need constant company to feel complete. That shift is where strength is born, when your happiness and confidence no longer depend on others, but flow from within you. Most people look for strength in gyms, in competitions, in achievements, and while those play a role, none of it is sustainable without the foundation of inner strength. What is the use of physical power if you crumble the moment you feel lonely? What is the value of external success if you are enslaved to the opinions of others? Real strength is the ability to sit in a room by yourself with nothing but your thoughts and not only survive, but thrive. If you can master that, you can master anything. Solitude teaches discipline because in those hours where nobody is watching, the easy choice is always to waste time, to scroll endlessly, to binge distractions, to numb yourself. But the stronger choice is to invest that time, to read, to train, to create, to plan, to build. Every moment you choose growth over comfort in solitude, you are building inner armor. That armor cannot be given, it cannot be bought, and it cannot be faked. It can only be forged in the fire of being alone and refusing to let it break you. This is why solitude is the birthplace of leaders, creators, visionaries, and warriors. When you become comfortable with solitude, you gain a freedom most people will never know. You are no longer desperate for company, no longer addicted to approval, no longer enslaved by noise. You begin to see clearly because you are not clouded by the opinions and judgments of the world. This clarity allows you to set goals with precision, to move with conviction, and to live with purpose. People who fear solitude will always be pulled by the current of the crowd, but those who embrace it become the architects of their own destiny. There will be days when solitude feels like weight, like loneliness pressing on your chest, and your mind will tempt you to run back to noise. But if you stay, if you breathe, if you endure that moment, you will find something rare, a power that begins to rise from within. That power is resilience. And resilience is what separates those who give up when life gets hard from those who stand unshaken, no matter the storm. Every hour of solitude is a training ground for resilience. And the more you train, the stronger you become. The world glorifies external power, wealth, fame, muscle, status. But those are fragile. They can be taken, they can fade, they can vanish. Inner strength, however, cannot be stolen. It is yours forever. And solitude is the key that unlocks it. Once you realize this, you stop fearing being alone and you start craving it. You begin to see solitude not as a prison, but as a sanctuary, a place where you grow sharper, stronger, and more unshakable every single day. The truth is, solitude is not for everyone. Most people will run from it their entire lives because it demands courage, patience, and honesty. But if you dare to embrace it, if you dare to let solitude mold you, you will rise above the masses. You will carry within you a strength that does not bend, does not break, and does not bow to anything or anyone. And when you walk into the world with that kind of strength, you become unstoppable. That is the power of solitude. It builds an inner strength that no noise, no chaos, and no person can ever take away from you. It transforms you from someone who needs the world to feel alive into someone who carries an entire world of power within. And once you have that, nothing, absolutely nothing can stand in your way. Alone time reveals your true self, and this is why so many people avoid it. They don't want to meet the person they really are beneath the masks they wear every single day. When you are surrounded by people, you are influenced, shaped, and sometimes even trapped by the expectations of others. You act differently depending on who is watching. You hide certain parts of yourself to fit in, to be accepted, or to be admired. But when you are alone, all of those performances fall away, and what remains is the raw, unfiltered version of you. That version can be uncomfortable to face, but it is the only version that matters because it is the truth. The truth is, when you are alone, you cannot lie to yourself for long. You might distract yourself with entertainment or drown your thoughts in noise. But in the stillness, your real desires, fears, and flaws surface. Alone time exposes the parts of yourself you have ignored, the dreams you buried because of doubt, the insecurities you cover with false confidence, and the pain you hide with smiles. Most people are terrified of this confrontation, which is why they constantly seek company, constant validation, and constant escape. But you cannot run from yourself forever. At some point, you must sit with who you are, and that moment of solitude is where the real journey begins. When you truly spend time alone, you begin to see your patterns clearly. You notice how you react to your own thoughts, how you handle boredom, how you treat yourself when no one else is around. Are you kind to yourself, or are you your own harshest critic? Do you use your alone time to grow, or do you waste it running from responsibility? Alone time gives you answers to questions you didn't even know you had. It strips away the illusions you create in social environments and forces you to acknowledge your real character. And once you see yourself clearly, you gain the power to change, to improve, and to evolve. Many people don't realize that greatness is rooted in self-awareness, and self-awareness only comes when you spend time with yourself. Alone time is where clarity is born. You begin to understand what actually matters to you, not what others have convinced you to care about. You realize which goals are truly yours and which ones you've been chasing just to impress people who don't even matter. Alone time reveals your true passions and your true values because there is no external noise telling you what you should want. There is only you, and your inner voice finally has the space to speak. This is why the most powerful people in history all valued solitude. They knew that to lead, to create, and to influence, they first had to know themselves. Because if you do not know yourself, the world will decide who you are for you. And that is the fastest way to live a life that feels empty. Alone time forces you to confront questions like, who am I without achievements? Who am I without an audience? Who am I when no one is watching? These are uncomfortable but necessary questions, and the answers you discover in solitude become the foundation of your identity. At first, you might not like what you see. You might realize you are lazier than you thought, more insecure than you admit, or less disciplined than you pretend to be. This is why many people abandon solitude and run back to noise. It is easier to hide. But if you are courageous enough to face those truths, you can change them. That is the gift of alone time. It reveals not only your flaws, but also your potential. It shows you what you are capable of if you stop lying to yourself and start living with honesty. In solitude, you will also discover strengths you didn't know you had. When the distractions fade and the masks drop, you might find resilience, creativity, or wisdom that has been buried beneath the chaos of everyday life. Alone time gives you space to think deeply, to dream boldly, and to connect with the deeper layers of your mind and soul. You realize that you are not as weak as you feared, that you are not as dependent as you believed, and that within you lies a version of yourself capable of far more than you imagined. This process is not easy. It takes courage to look in the mirror of solitude and accept what you see. It takes discipline to sit with discomfort instead of numbing it with distractions. But those who master it become unshakable. They walk into the world with a level of confidence that cannot be faked, because it is built on truth. They know who they are, what they stand for, and what they want from life. No opinion, no rejection, and no judgment can shake someone who has already faced themselves in solitude. Alone time is the greatest teacher because it strips away illusions and reveals the core of your being. It is uncomfortable, it is raw, but it is liberating. When you know yourself deeply, you move through the world with authenticity. You stop living for others and start living for yourself. You stop chasing acceptance and start building purpose. And the more time you spend alone, the more aligned you become with the person you were meant to be. So never run from solitude. Embrace it. Let it challenge you. Let it expose you. Let it teach you. Because in those quiet hours, you are not losing time. You are finding yourself. And once you know your true self, you become powerful beyond measure, because nothing in this world is stronger than a person who knows exactly who they are. Discipline is forged in silence, and that is why so few people ever master it. The world today is loud, full of constant distractions, endless noise, and nonstop temptation. Everywhere you turn, there's something pulling at your attention. Notifications, conversations, entertainment, and drama. People wonder why they can't stay consistent, why they can't focus, why they give up so easily, and the answer is simple. They have never learned the art of silence. Silence is not just the absence of sound, it is the absence of distractions. It is the space where you face your commitments without interference. And it is in that space, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, that true discipline is born. Discipline has nothing to do with how you act when everyone is clapping for you. Discipline has nothing to do with how hard you work when the cameras are on, when the crowd is cheering, or when the reward is in sight. Discipline is built in the moments no one sees, the hours where you could take the easy path but choose the hard one anyway. It is built in the silence of the early mornings when you get out of bed before the world wakes. It is built in the late nights when you choose to study, work, or train instead of wasting time. These silent moments are the furnace where self-mastery is forged. The reason silence is so powerful is because it eliminates excuses. When you are alone, there's nobody to blame, nobody to impress, nobody to distract you. It's just you and your choices. Do you stick to your plan, or do you fold? Do you keep your promises to yourself, or do you break them? That is where discipline lives, in the decisions you make when no one is holding you accountable but you. And the truth is, most people fail here. They want results, but they are not willing to endure the silence where discipline is created. Discipline is not glamorous. It is not exciting. It is often boring, repetitive, and brutally demanding. Waking up early every single day, sticking to your training even when you're tired, choosing the healthy meal instead of junk food, studying when you'd rather relax. These things don't bring instant pleasure. They bring silence. They bring sacrifice. And because people crave constant stimulation, they run from that silence, not realizing that this is the very place where greatness is shaped. The strong learn to embrace it. The strong know that silence is not their enemy, it is their ally. In silence, you learn patience. You learn consistency. You learn to keep moving forward without applause, without recognition, without instant gratification. That is the hardest lesson of all. Most people are addicted to rewards. They only work hard when the reward is immediate, but the reality is that the best rewards in life come after long seasons of silent effort. Success is not one big moment. It is 1,000 small choices made in silence, stacked on top of each other until they build something unshakable. Think about the greats in any field. Athletes, entrepreneurs, artists, leaders, they all share the same truth. The majority of their victories were earned when nobody was watching. The trophies, the money, the recognition, those are just the visible outcomes. The real battle was won in silence, when they showed up day after day, refusing to quit, even when it felt like nobody cared. That is the essence of discipline. It is not about motivation, because motivation fades. It is about standards. Discipline means you do what needs to be done, regardless of how you feel, regardless of who is watching, regardless of whether anyone ever thanks you for it. And here's the truth that most people don't want to hear. Silence is uncomfortable. It exposes weakness. It makes you aware of how often you give in to laziness, how quickly you break your own promises. But if you can endure that discomfort, if you can sit in that silence and still choose discipline, you will separate yourself from the masses. The majority of people crumble when they don't have external pressure. The disciplined thrive because they have built internal pressure. They hold themselves to a higher standard. When you forge discipline in silence, you become unshakable. You don't need approval. You don't need supervision. You don't need someone to remind you of your goals. You move with self-control, and that makes you powerful in a way that no amount of talent or luck can replace. Discipline is not about perfection. It is about persistence. It is about showing up again and again, even when it feels pointless, until the results begin to show. And by the time the world finally notices your success, they will call you lucky, not realizing that your so-called luck was built in thousands of silent hours they never saw. Silence is the proving ground. It is where you decide if you are serious or just pretending. Anyone can talk about their goals, but silence reveals the truth. Are you willing to work when no one applauds? Are you willing to sacrifice pleasure for progress? Are you willing to live with the boredom of routine, knowing that it is shaping you into something greater? If the answer is yes, then you have discipline. If the answer is no, then you will always depend on noise, and noise will never make you strong. So the next time you find yourself in silence, don't run from it. Embrace it. Because in that silence lies your future. In that silence lies your power. Discipline is not built in the moments the world sees. It is forged in the silence you endure when no one is watching. And those who master that silence become unstoppable because they have built a strength that cannot be shaken by applause, temptation, or distraction. That is the unbreakable truth. Discipline is forged in silence, and those who embrace it own their destiny. Growth requires detachment from noise, and this is one of the hardest lessons for people to accept. Everywhere you go, the world screams for your attention. Phones buzzing with notifications, endless streams of entertainment, opinions flying at you from every angle, friends pulling you into meaningless conversations, and society feeding you distractions disguised as importance. People wonder why they feel stuck, why they can't focus, why their dreams seem so far away. And the truth is simple. They are drowning in noise. Noise is not just sound. It is everything that steals your focus, clouds your vision, and keeps you chained to mediocrity. If you want to grow, truly grow, you must detach yourself from it. You must step back, step out, and create space where clarity and progress can exist. The reason noise is so dangerous is because it disguises itself as connection, as relevance, as necessity. People convince themselves that staying plugged into every conversation, every update, every piece of drama is important, when in reality, it's just noise keeping them weak. Growth happens in silence, in focus, in solitude, but that silence feels uncomfortable, so people run back to noise because it distracts them from facing themselves. Yet the irony is clear. Every great transformation requires separation from the noise of the crowd. You cannot rise while being pulled in 1,000 directions. You cannot create while being consumed. You cannot discover your path while being lost in everyone else's. When you detach from noise, the first thing you gain is clarity. Suddenly, you are no longer bombarded with 1,000 voices telling you who you should be, what you should want, and how you should live. You begin to hear the only voice that truly matters, your own. And that voice has been buried for so long beneath the constant chatter of the world that when you finally hear it, it feels powerful. Growth requires you to know yourself deeply, and you cannot know yourself while you are drowning in other people's opinions, judgments, and expectations. Detaching from noise is not about cutting yourself off from the world forever. It is about creating the space where your vision can breathe, where your ideas can form, where your strength can grow. People fear detachment because they think it means loneliness, but the truth is the opposite. Noise keeps you disconnected from yourself, while detachment reconnects you with who you are meant to be. Growth requires focus, and focus cannot exist when your attention is scattered. Every moment you spend lost in the noise of others is a moment stolen from your own progress. Growth demands sacrifice, and one of the biggest sacrifices is letting go of the noise that everyone else clings to. It means saying no to endless conversations that add nothing to your life. It means turning off the distractions that keep you weak. It means walking away from the opinions of people who don't matter so you can finally build the life that does. Detachment is not easy. At first, the silence feels heavy, even unbearable. You'll feel the urge to run back to noise because it feels safer, it feels easier, it feels familiar. But if you endure it, you will find freedom on the other side. You will discover that growth happens in the spaces you once tried to avoid. In silence, you see your flaws clearly, but you also see your potential. In focus, you see what needs to change, but you also see how strong you can become. The noise of the world numbs you, but detachment awakens you. Think about it. Every person who has built something extraordinary did it by detaching from noise. They stepped away from distractions and gave their energy fully to their vision. They weren't scrolling endlessly, gossiping endlessly, or trying to please everyone around them. They were locked in, focused, disciplined, and detached. Growth requires that same mindset. If you want rise, you must be willing to leave behind the comfort of noise, because comfort is the enemy of progress. Detachment from noise also teaches you to value your time. When you are constantly distracted, hours vanish, days slip away, years pass without progress. But when you step away, you realize how much time you actually have and how powerful it becomes when invested with intention. Growth is not about doing more. It is about doing what matters with full commitment. Noise scatters your energy. Detachment concentrates it. And concentrated energy is unstoppable. The world will try to pull you back into the noise. People will not understand your choice to detach because most of them are addicted to distractions. They will call you distant, cold, arrogant, or antisocial. But you must remember, growth is not for everyone. Most people will stay trapped in the noise forever because it's easier than facing the silence required for growth. If you want to separate yourself, you must be willing to do what most won't. And that means stepping out of the crowd and into the stillness where progress lives. Growth is never accidental. It requires intention, discipline, and sacrifice. Detaching from noise is not about rejecting the world. It's about reclaiming yourself. It's about choosing progress over distraction, purpose over comfort, and clarity over confusion. Every time you say no to noise, you say yes to growth. Every time you walk away from distractions, you walk closer to your destiny. And once you build the strength to detach, you will never want to go back because you will realize just how much of your life you were wasting on things that never truly mattered. So if you want to grow, you must detach from noise. Turn down the volume of the world and turn up the volume of your focus. Let silence shape you. Let clarity guide you. And let discipline carry you forward. Because growth cannot exist in chaos. Growth cannot exist in distraction. Growth requires detachment from noise, and once you embrace that truth, you will rise above the crowd and build a life that no one else thought was possible. Solitude transforms potential into power, and this is the secret very few people ever unlock. Everyone is born with potential. Every single person has inside them seeds of greatness, dreams, talents, ideas, possibilities waiting to be realized. But potential alone is worthless if it never grows, if it never transforms, if it never turns into action. The sad truth is that most people die with their potential still trapped inside them, never tapped, never used, never realized, because they were too distracted, too afraid, or too weak to harness it. The difference between those who remain average and those who rise above is simple: solitude. It is in solitude that potential is shaped into real, undeniable power. When you are constantly surrounded by people, by noise, by distraction, you scatter your energy. Your attention is divided, your focus is weak, and your potential lies dormant. But when you are alone, when the world is silent, when there are no interruptions, something changes. You begin to see clearly. You begin to feel the weight of your own untapped abilities. Solitude forces you to confront your potential, to take responsibility for it, and to start turning it into power. Power comes from action, from discipline, discipline, from consistent effort, and solitude gives you the space to build those habits without interference. Potential is like raw material, and solitude is the workshop where you shape it. Imagine a block of stone in the hands of a sculptor. Left untouched, it's nothing more than rock. But when the sculptor works on it, patiently, intentionally, with focus, it transforms into art. Your potential is the stone, and solitude makes you the sculptor. It is in those quiet hours, away from distractions, that you study, train, plan, and execute. Every rep in the gym when no one is cheering for you, every late night reading when others are wasting time, every quiet hour spent honing your craft, these are the chisels turning potential into power. Without solitude, that process never happens. People underestimate the power of solitude because they confuse it with loneliness. Loneliness drains you, but solitude builds you. Loneliness is feeling empty because you're alone, but solitude is filling yourself with strength because you're alone. In solitude, you tap into the deepest parts of your mind and soul. You discover creativity you never knew you had, resilience you never thought you could develop, and determination that feels unshakable. This is why so many great minds throughout history sought solitude. They understood it wasn't isolation, it was incubation. They weren't hiding from the world. They were building themselves so they could return to the world stronger. Potential without solitude often dies in distraction. You might have talent, but if you're always seeking attention, always needing validation, always surrounded by noise, you'll never cultivate it. Solitude teaches you to rely on yourself, to push yourself, to discipline yourself. It transforms your potential into something solid, something real, something no one can take away. This transformation is not instant. It's forged day by day, choice by choice, hour by hour, in the silence where no one is clapping. That is why solitude is powerful. It strips away the illusions and forces you to put in the real work. Another reason solitude transforms potential into power is because it strengthens your mind. Potential is not enough. You need mental toughness to wield it. When you are alone, you battle self-doubt, fear, and weakness directly. You learn to silence the inner critic, to master your emotions, to command your focus. That mental strength is power. Because in life, it's not just talent that wins. It's the ability to stay disciplined under pressure, to endure setbacks, to push forward when things get hard. Solitude trains you for that battle. Every time you endure the silence, every time you stay committed when no one is watching, you grow stronger. That strength compounds, and before you know it, your potential has become real, undeniable power. Most people will never experience this transformation because solitude is hard. It's easier to be distracted, easier to stay comfortable, easier to live in the noise, but those who embrace solitude separate themselves from the masses. They use alone time to build skills, to sharpen their minds, to create strategies, to fuel their dreams, and over time, they become unstoppable. The same potential that others waste becomes the power they use to change their lives and impact the world. That is the difference solitude makes. Think of it this way. Potential is a spark. Solitude is the oxygen that turns that spark into fire. Without solitude, the spark dies. With solitude, the fire grows into a blaze that lights your path and inspires others. When you commit to solitude, you stop being just another person with dreams and start becoming the person who makes those dreams real. The world doesn't reward potential. It rewards results. And results are built in solitude. So if you want to unlock your power, don't fear being alone. Seek it, protect it, use it. Turn off the noise, step away from distractions, and give yourself the space to work on your potential. Because in those hours of solitude, you are building something no one can see yet, but one day they will. And when they do, it will look like overnight success, but you will know the truth. It wasn't luck. It wasn't chance. It was solitude. It was the hours you spent alone, sharpening yourself, building yourself, transforming your potential into power. Never forget this. Solitude is not emptiness. It is empowerment. It is not a weakness. It is the foundation of strength. And if you are willing to embrace it, solitude will take what is inside you, your potential, and turn it into the power that shapes your destiny. And so, remember this, solitude is not something to fear, it is something to embrace. The world will always try to convince you that being alone is weakness, that constant company is strength, that endless noise is progress. But the truth is the opposite. It is in solitude that you build yourself. It is in solitude that you uncover your true identity, sharpen your discipline, detach from distractions, and transform your potential into power. Every great achievement you see in the world was first born in the quiet, unseen hours of solitude. The silence that others run from is the silence that will shape you. If you can stand strong in solitude, you can stand strong anywhere. If you can master yourself in silence, you can master the noise of the world. Your growth, your power, your destiny, they are all waiting for you to embrace the time when no one is watching. Stop fearing being alone. Start using it, because solitude is not the end of connection. It is the beginning of transformation. And once you learn to turn solitude into strength, there will be nothing and no one on this earth capable of stopping you.